On July 7, 1865, a cluster of black umbrellas moved slowly across a prison yard in Washington, held against heat near 100 degrees. Beneath them walked a widow of about 42. Her name was Mary Surratt, and by the end of that afternoon, she would become the first woman executed by the U.S. federal government. Whether she deserved it is a question that has never closed. 3 months earlier, on April 14th, John Wilkes Booth shot President Abraham Lincoln at Ford's Theater, while Lewis Powell nearly killed Secretary of State Seward in his bed. The manhunt led quickly to a narrow brick row house on H Street. Mary Surratt kept boarders there. Her son John was a Confederate courier, and Booth had called at the house again and again. There had first been a plot to kidnap Lincoln and trade him for Confederate prisoners. It fizzled. Only in Booth's final days did kidnapping turn to murder. What the landlady knew of either plan is the eternal question. President Johnson reportedly called her house the nest that hatched the egg. On April 17th, detectives came at midnight to arrest everyone inside. While they stood in her parlor, someone knocked. On the steps was a huge man with a pickaxe on his shoulder, claiming he was hired to dig a gutter. It was Lewis Powell, who had butchered Secretary Seward 3 days before. Asked if she knew him, Mary raised her hand and swore before God she had never seen him. He had boarded in her house. Her lawyers said failing eyes, a dark hallway, a disguise. That one moment did more to hang her than any testimony. She was not given a jury. President Johnson ordered the conspirators tried by a military commission, 9 Union officers sitting as judge and jury, a forum her own lawyers attacked as unlawful. The case against her rested on 2 men. John Lloyd, the tavern keeper who leased her Maryland property, swore she told him to have the shooting irons ready. He was a heavy drinker, drunk that afternoon by several accounts, his own neck at risk. Louis Weichman, her boarder, catalogued Booth's visits in sober detail, and many believed he testified to stay out of the dock himself. Both men were compromised. Both were consistent, and neither ever recanted. The commission found her guilty and sentenced her to hang. Then came the fracture. 5 of the 9 officers signed a plea asking the president to commute her sentence to life because of her age and her sex. Johnson swore to his grave he never saw it. The prosecutor swore he handed it to him. One of them was wrong, and the country never found out which. The condemned learned they had roughly 1 day to live. Her daughter Anna begged on the White House steps and was physically turned away. A habeas writ signed at 2 in the morning was suspended by the president before noon. Just past 1 o'clock, in the Arsenal yard, under those umbrellas, before about 1,000 spectators, the sentence was carried out. Powell insisted to the end that she was innocent. She reportedly whispered, "Don't let me fall. 4 ropes, 4 pine boxes." The scaffold's shadow on the yard wall. She was the first woman the United States federal government ever executed. And her son, the courier at the center of the plot, was gone. John Surratt fled to Canada, then England, then Rome, where he hid in the Pope's own guard under a false name, and finally to Egypt, where he was arrested and shipped home in irons. In 1867, he got what his mother never had, a civilian jury. It hung 8-4 in his favor, and the government gave up. He walked free, and by 1870 he was selling lecture tickets, admitting the kidnap plot and denying the murder. 18 months later, the Supreme Court ruled her kind of trial unlawful for civilians. Too late for her. Some historians believe she knew everything. Others believe she was hanged on the word of 2 frightened men. The question has outlived everyone who could settle it. This has been under oath.